Leeds United have finally confirmed Marcelo Bielsa as their new manager in what is a huge coup for the club. The 62-year-old arrives at Elland Road with a reputation as one of the most influential and innovative coaches of the last 30 years, with the likes of Pep Guardiola, Diego Simeone and Mauricio Pochettino all previously hailing the Argentinians' influence on their own coaching careers. Known for his meticulous levels of detail on preparation, Bielsa's revolutionary brand of high-intensity, pressing football was seen during spells in charge of Argentina and Chile's national teams and in Europe with the likes of Athletic Bilbao. As he prepares to turn his attention to the championship, tasked with returning Leeds United back to the top flight for the first time in 15 years, what does his body of work tell us about how he will approach the role? What attributes from his all-encompassing CV will he be able to call on in the English second tier? Let's have a look. Lofty upbringings. Bielsa's family are involved in politics and the law. Bielsa was born in Rosario on July 21, 1955, with his family coming from good stock. His father was a lawyer and mother a school teacher, with his older brother Rafael going on to serve as a Minister of Foreign Relations under President Nestor Kirchner, and his sister, Maria Eugenia, training as an architect who also served as vice governor for Santa Fe. His grandfather was said to have more than 30,000 books in his own personal library, which goes a long way to explain why Bielsa would go on to be one of the game's most renowned scholars. As a child he was to have read a book a day, while he took subscriptions out for more than 40 sport magazines. The young Bielsa was driven from an early age, inheriting his mother's work ethic. For her, no effort was sufficient, he would later admit. The influence of my mother is fundamental in my life. He began to play football as a young child and as he grew older would not entertain the idea of moving into the establishment, instead leaving home at the age of 15 when he stayed at Newell Old Boys Club accommodation. Here, he was told to leave after just 2 days. A theme will emerge here, when he would not leave his motorcycle outside. A failed playing career. Bielsa never really made it as a player. It was more through determination than natural talent which saw Bielsa work his way through the youth team ranks at Newell's Old Boys, as he would go on to play in their first team, but could never establish himself in the team, with the lack of pace his main undoing. He would leave the club in 1978 and drop down through the leagues before rocking up as the coach for Buenos Aires University team, where he tried his hand at coaching for the first time. As a boy he would force his mother to buy him copies of the Argentine sports magazine El Gráfico, which he would devour and index religiously, a sign of what to come in his coaching career. Before picking the squad of 20 for his university team he watched 3,000 players, treating them like professionals and installing a rapid, attacking system, as the seeds of what would be a long and successful playing career were sown. The move into management. Bielsa returned to his former club to kick off his managerial career after 2 years with the university team. He returned to the professional ranks as he went back to Newell's as a youth team coach, but by 1990 was entrusted with the top job. He was quick to ring in the changes, installing short but intense training sessions, heavy on ball work and heavy on tactics. For the first half of the week after the weekend's match he would consume as much video footage as he could on Newell's upcoming opponents, while tasking the club's young players with producing dossiers of the next team they would face. In the days before the game Bielsa would then walk his team through hundreds of attacking and defensive situations, focusing on the most minute and mundane-sounding details. Making a name for himself after a slow start, Newell's would soon find a groove, going on a winning run which saw them claim the Apertura title, awarded for the side who attained the most points over the first half of the season. They would then play the winners of the Clausura, the best team from the second half of the campaign, Boca Juniors. Bielsa quickly won his first trophy with Newell's. Newell's form dipped in the second half of the season, but they did just enough to triumph on penalties after the two foes traded 1-0 home wins in each leg of the final. Bielsa's physical demands would again see the team suffer in the next season, with a 6-0 defeat to San Lorenzo in the Libertadores group stage hitting Bielsa hard. "I shut myself in my room," he said, turned off the light, closed the curtains and realized the meaning of an expression we sometimes use lightly: "I want to die." I burst into tears. I could not understand what was happening around me. I suffered as a professional and I suffered as a fan. Rather than doubt his methods after this humiliating defeat, he instead chose to back himself, doubling down on his instincts, in what was one of the turning points in his career, as he set about a tweak in his system which would see more pressing and fluidity. The traditional 3-3-1-3 Bielsa formation sees 3 central defenders, 2 wing-backs, wide midfielders either side of a deep-lying midfielder, a creative midfielder in the whole, a front 3 with 2 wide men. As Jonathan Wilson points out, his philosophy was then broken down into 4 terms: permanent focus, mobility, rotation and repenetization, a term which is loosely translated into an urgent type of improvisation. Newell's would go on to win the 1991-92 Clausura and reach the final of the Libertadores Cup, a run which included a 5-1 win, 2-legged revenge win over San Lorenzo, before they lost out to Cafu's Sao Paulo side on penalties. That would be Bielsa's final game at the club, who would then spend the next season fighting relegation. A new role in Mexico. As far as job recommendations go, it was a somewhat backhanded compliment. He is ideal. Argentina's 1978 World Cup winning coach Cesar Luis Menotti told Atlas president Fernando Acosta. Although the truth is that he's a little crazy, Bielsa's stint in Mexico played a huge part in his development. That was enough to convince Acosta to install Bielsa in an all-encompassing role at the Mexican side, who tasked the Argentine with using his meticulous nature to develop the club's youth system, train young players and put systems in place for the future. During his time as a youth coach at Newell's, Bielsa tasked himself with unearthing young talent from the country's interior, dividing the nation into 70 regions and visiting each one of them, driving more than 5,000 miles due to his fear of flying. He soon got to work, installing a ridiculously complex scouting system. "I designed a structure to observe 20,000 players a year," he recalled in a 1997 interview with a Mexican newspaper in 1997. Atlas had a relay in 2,500 cities, we organized tournaments, and we selected 15 players from each one. Bielsa is renowned for his meticulous preparation and it worked. At the 2006 World Cup, the Mexican side, which lost to Argentina in the last 16, featured 8 players in the starting lineup who had either been discovered or trained by Bielsa. After seeing the instant impact Bielsa was making, Acosta was unable to resist the opportunity to throw Bielsa into the head coaching job, finally being able to convince the Argentine to take the reins for the 1993-94 season. Jared Borgetti, Mexico's second all-time leading scorer, was handed his debut by Bielsa, and his memories of his time under his former coach are typical of Bielsa's former charges. Bielsa was a warlord. "When I arrived in Guadalajara, I knew nothing about football. He taught me a lot about how to see the game, analyze it. He was very demanding, a perfectionist, but he wants his players to learn football so they know and see what will happen in a game. He did not just teach me to play, it's deeper than that." Bielsa's young side finished runners-up in the Primera Division, but as at Newell struggled to again hit the heights, and Bielsa again showed signs of burnout and resigned only 23 games into the new season. After dabbling in a new hobby, if Johan Cruyff and Franz Beckenbauer play golf, why not me? He was approached by Club America before the 1995-96 season. After asking for videos of every single one of the club's games from the past 2 seasons, he took the job and his new side quickly moved to the top of the table. But interference from the club's board caused tension, and after 3 straight defeats, he was sacked. He would briefly return to Atlas in his initial position working with youngsters before returning to Argentina with Vélez Sarsfield, with his 5-year spell in Mexico becoming a crucial, if sometimes overlooked, part in his development as a coach. This spell was also his first extended period out of Argentina and saw him immerse himself in the country's history and culture to ensure there would be no culture clash. His fellow coach at Atlas, Ernesto Uria, said, "I think he knew more about Mexican history than I did." Another title in Argentina in 1997, he was back in his homeland, this time as boss of Vélez Sarsfield after bringing 51 videos with him to the interview to show how he could improve the team. Again, he was able to impress his quick vertical, pressing style of play, and his new side would finish the Apertura in 4th place, before winning the Clausura. After only signing a one-year contract, he did not extend his spell at Vélez, opting to move to Europe with Espanyol. His first pre-season game was a 2-0 defeat to Everton, which saw his side conceded an own goal in the second minute, and it didn't get much better. Shortly after the season started, Bielsa was offered the Argentina job, reaching an agreement to take over at the end of the year or earlier, if Espanyol could find a replacement. Amid a poor run of results that brought about only one win from his opening 6 games, Bielsa was let go and was free to take his biggest job yet. A man with new ideas is a madman, until his ideas triumph. There are 36 different forms of communicating through a pass. If players weren't human, I'd never lose. Into the international arena, Bielsa took over his nation's side at the end of 1998, inheriting a team that included the likes of Roberto Ayala, Juan Sebastian Veron, Ariel Ortega and Gabriel Batistuta, who would all go on to become key players under the new boss. His first tournament was the 1999 Copa America, in which La Albiceleste suffered a quarter-final defeat to winners Brazil, while they would pull out of the next edition of the tournament 2 years later in Colombia, citing security concerns. But where Bielsa's side did shine was in qualifying for the 2002 World Cup, losing just one of the 18 games in the mammoth CONMEBOL qualification campaign, with Bielsa's now trademark tactical 3-3-1-3 setup, which will sometimes morph into a 4-2-3-1, really beginning to gel, earning the IFFHS award for the best coach in international football in 2001. He was the one who taught me how to train on rainy days. He taught me everything, but the final in South Korea in Japan would go on to be a massive disappointment, as Argentina crashed out in the group stage, in one of the country's worst performances ever at a World Cup. As he did after the San Lorenzo defeat, Bielsa took it badly, retreating to his isolated country house for weeks, but was given a stay of execution by Argentine FA boss Julio Grondona, just as he did at Newell's. Bielsa was able to fight his way back, reaching the final of the 2004 Copa America before winning the gold medal at the Olympics in Athens later that year, the country's first gold for 52 years. Citing personal reasons, he would quit at the end of 2004. A national icon in Chile, the Chile job appealed to Bielsa in 2007. At his introductory press conference, Bielsa admitted that the time and space he would be able to enjoy in the long-term product was the reason he took the job. Bielsa got Chile back in the World Cup. Chile had reached just one of the past 6 World Cups and were still feeling the hangover of the political and sporting international isolation that the General Pinochet dictatorship had brought about, playing European side just 10 times outside of World Cups between 1973 and 1990. Bielsa immediately began to get to work improving the national team center, using his forensic eye for detail to bring about even the smallest possible change, while he devoured hour after hour of video footage. Chile had a promising batch of young players, including the likes of Alexis Sanchez, Gary Medel, Mauricio Isla and Naruto Vidal, who had finished third in the Under-20s World Cup, so Bielsa took the helm for the Under-21 Toulon tournament in 2008, taking Chile all the way to the final, and he would then fast-track a number of these players into his first team. Bielsa was able to maximize his limited time with the squad, using his skill of being able to transmit his ideas to them quickly and clearly, with his intensity helping to quickly improve his players. Before I was erratic, running around like crazy all over the pitch. I didn't concentrate well in matches or in training. He made me realize the importance of the mental side of my game and helped me grow as a person. Qualification for the 2010 World Cup in South Africa followed, and the current generation of Chile fans were able to see their side win their first game at the tournament since 1962, when they saw off Honduras in their opening match. Las Rojo would go on to qualify for the knockout phase, losing to Brazil in the last 16, but Bielsa was now seen as a national hero. This was also partly due to him embracing Chilean culture. "I think the country suited him really well," said Chilean sports sociologist Andres Parra. "Bielsa has a very particular character. He's introverted, quiet, but with a sharp sense of humor." Bielsa embraced Chilean culture. "He was committed to studying our theater, culture and books. And for such a famous coach, he liked to talk to people. He would go to the bakery on the corner to buy his bread, or to the local market to buy his fruit and vegetables." Again, politics would prove to bring about his departure. November 2010, he announced he would quit if Jorge Segovia was elected president of the Chilean FA, and followed though on this, despite Segovia's election being dissolved. Bielsa signed off with a 2-0 win over Uruguay, as outgoing president Harold Main Nichols teared up in the stands. The hipster's choice. Bielsa masterminded a spectacular win over Manchester United. Bielsa was now beginning to register on the radar of the football cognoscenti, with European fans relishing the opportunity to see him week in week out when he joined Athletic Bilbao in 2011, ahead of offers from Inter, Sevilla and Real Sociedad. Once his new side cottoned onto his methods and style of play, they quickly gathered momentum, especially in the Europa League, where they dumped out Manchester United in a display of speed, attacking prowess and tactical mastery that left the English media purring. At first he seems tough and he may even annoy you with his persistence and don't take no for an answer resilience, but in the end he is a genius. But the wear and tear on Bielsa's limited squad at the Basque club caught up with them, as Athletic would lose in the finals of the Europa League and Copa del Rey. With Javi Martinez leaving for Bayern Munich and Fernando Llorente frozen out following a contract dispute, Athletic failed to hit the heights in Bielsa's second season, with the club opting not to renew his 2-year deal after a 12th place finish in 2012-13. Remembering Marcelo Bielsa's tactical masterclass against Manchester United losing his edge. Bielsa's ninth job in management came in France with Marseille, with his 2-year deal kicking in after the 2014 World Cup. By this stage of his career, Bielsa's influence had passed down onto a new generation of coaches, with the likes of Pep Guardiola, Mauricio Pochettino, Diego Simeone and Gerardo Martino all quick to hail Bielsa's influence on the game. This new generation were also evolving the fundamentals of Bielsa's pressing game and finding ways to overcome the burnout that Bielsa's sides, and the manager himself, would suffer in the second season. My admiration for Marcelo Bielsa is huge because he makes the players much better. I didn't meet one guy, a former player from Marcelo Bielsa, who speaks no good about him. He is the best coach in the world. At Marseille it was more of the same for the Argentine. A strong start, which saw them top the table in December, only for the team to fade away and end the campaign in fourth. And again, a premature exit as he left one game into his second season, following a dispute with the board. Next up was Lazio, but Bielsa would only last 2 days in the post, as he quit the club after claiming promises over transfers were not being met. His final job was at Lille, arriving in the summer of 2017 on a 2-year deal and quickly telling a host of the club's experienced players they could leave. Bielsa's tactics have influenced a generation. After installing bungalows at the club's training complex so his squad could literally live and breathe football in an extended pre-season campaign, he got to work, using his tried-and-tested methods by feeding his players plenty of video footage and enforcing intense training sessions. But again, his spell at the club proved to be over prematurely. After a 3-0 opening weekend win over Nantes, Lille suffered a farcical defeat to Strasbourg in their second match of the season, as Bielsa made 3 first substitutions and then had to put an outfielder in goal after Mike Maignan was sent off in the second half. Another row with the board followed, which saw him suspended and then sacked in December. What next? Bielsa arrives in Yorkshire on the back of 3 controversial exits from his last 3 roles, and with the charge levied his way that he has been tactically overtaken by his many disciples. The 62-year-old will face a steep learning curve in the championship, but as his history shows, he is more than willing to throw himself into a challenge and will no doubt have watched plenty of videos of his new team in action. He will likely have his team in the best physical condition of their lives come the start of the season, which bodes well for the grueling nature of the championship, and it will be fascinating to see how one of the greatest tactical minds gets to grip with the English second flight and with a club with such an idiosyncratic nature as Leeds United. Buckle up folks, as this will be a wild ride. Timeline: Marcelo Bielsa's managerial career takes over his former side as a 35-year-old, winning the 1991 Apertura and 1992 Clausura and losing in the final of the 1992 Copa Libertadores. Moves to Mexico, where he was tasked with developing Atlas youth system before taking over the top job. Would last only a season at Club America. Back to Argentina for a single season, where he won the Clausura. Moves to Europe but only manages 9 games before his country came calling. Takes over from Daniel Passarella. Qualifies for the 2002 World Cup but knocked out in the first round. Runners-up in the 2004 Copa America before winning the Olympic gold medal later that year. After a 3-year gap, returns to management with Chile, where he chalks up a number of landmark wins as Los Rojos qualify for the World Cup for the first time in 12 years and would reach the knockout stages. Back to Europe for a spell which was characterized by a blistering run to the Europa League final in 2012. Bielsa's contract was not renewed after a disappointing second season. Guided home to 4th in League One but quit after the first game of his second season following a disagreement with the board. Was in the job for 2 days before he quit, citing broken promises over transfer from the board. Another short stint, as Bielsa would manage just 19 games before he was sacked by the club. After 2 weeks of intense negotiations, Leeds United finally got their man.